Friends, before we dive into today's story, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments below. It won't take you more than a second, but it means the world to me and helps this channel grow. Your support keeps the stories coming, so don't miss out. Subscribe now and join our little storytelling family. Now, let's step into today's tale. In the morning, Alka was already on edge. Her intuition always caught it instantly when something was wrong with me. "Aunt Steam," I was about to leave. "Of course they hired you out of town too," she muttered, frowning. "They take whoever looks more respectable. Come on, It's just for now. I'll start on the transporter, and we'll see where it goes." "Do you even hear yourself?" She threw up her hands. "Who's going to let you drive a transporter? What category license do you even have?" "They said B was enough at the interview," I answered. "Still, it wouldn't hurt to know the roads," she shot back. "You never go anywhere but downtown. You're hiding something, aren't you?" I didn't argue. I just looked at my wife. She was 42, 3 years older than me. But she had the slim figure of a teenager, smooth skin, and huge sky-blue eyes. I, on the other hand, had wrinkles, gray at my temples, and lately people had started giving me their seats in the metro. Life's troubles seemed to pass Alka by, though she'd had it rough. When I lost my job, she didn't say a word of reproach, even though the whole burden of the family budget fell on her shoulders. She got a job teaching elementary school, 1st and 2nd grades, plus aftercare. If your only connection with school is that your kid studies there, you have no idea what real hell it can be, hour after hour surrounded by screaming, hysterical, hyperactive little monsters. Yes, I just called your kids monsters. Sorry, I'm not quite myself. "Come on, stop pretending," she sighed with a half-smile. I shoved my passport, driver's license, work record, and military ID into my bag, everything HR might need. Alka still didn't quite believe me. But with her, pretending was always more trouble than it was worth. "Just before leaving," I said, while I'm gone, if someone named Vojkovic remembered name, already done, he's a friend who's mine. Well, sort of. Not re a friend on acquaintance. Helped him out once, and he said he just turned up in Moscow and wants to pay me back. "Pay you back how?" she asked, suspicious. "He almost ended up in jail, got into a fight, and killed a guy." I testified that it was self-defense, so the court let him off. After that, he disappeared for years, but said he wouldn't forget the favor. So, don't worry. I'll explain everything later. I kissed her on the lips and slipped out the door. The old 6-cylinder started right up. Yesterday I'd spent 4 hours drinking coffee in the waiting area of the motor depot. They were offering at least 6 months' work. Not bad. I was supposed to end up in a small industrial town in the northern suburbs. No trafik jamais drevlon, then on to the Yaroslavl highway, following the printed map. My documents were tucked safely in the glove compartment, except my license that I kept in my jacket pocket. I was just turning onto the old Yaroslavl road when my phone rang. Alka. Her voice was trembling, almost screaming. I'd never heard her like that. "Vitya, someone came?" "From that friend of yours, Boris, or whatever his name is. He brought money." "A case full of money," said it's from Boris, with best regards and friendship. "Vitya, I'm scared." "What's there to be scared of?" "Cash doesn't bite. I joked, the line I'd prepared in advance. Vitya, there's $250,000 in foreign currency. He said, so himself? I didn't count it, but just by the look of it, no less. All big bills. Vitya, what are we supposed to do with it? We'll spend it. Alka, what else? You knew how much you'd get for that favor, didn't you? She asked quietly. More or less. Then why the hell did you take that driver's job? She shouted. Alka, I said, changing lanes. If it weren't for that money, what then? You'd still have me hanging on your neck. Now, we've got $250,000 sitting in our flat. Don't open the door to anyone. Better yet, text your brother, tell him to stay with you till I'm back. We'll talk later, okay? I'm driving. Bye. I hung up and switched off my phone. The deal was done. The money was delivered into the hands of my tired, sleepless, overworked wife. Which meant only one thing. My own life was now worth nothing. I checked my watch, 7:30. The briefing was set for 8:15. Valera had arrived early, out of habit from his business trips. I wondered how long he'd end up being our commander. Well, that would depend on how the cards fell. He was sitting on the steps of the community center, cracking pistachios and pouring the shells into the pocket of his hooded windbreaker. The small town wasn't picturesque like some Mesco suburbs, no rolling hills or restored old churches. Everything here was built in the pragmatic 80s, rows of standard 9-story apartment blocks and neatly planned streets. But at least the air was clean, officially an eco-zone, as I crossed the square toward the community center. 3 more cars had parked along the edge, Pavlik's right-hand drive Honda, Seryoga's old Golf, and then Premier Stilkuldenti on half. Ignat ended up among us, a broad-shouldered brute with perfect muscles, bulletproof arrogance, and a permanent smirk. Sneaky as a skunk, too. He didn't greet anyone, deliberately keeping apart from the group. I heard Seryoga talking quietly on the phone. They brought the money, at least something. A weight lifted off my chest. Seryoga had gotten into this team for a reason. His daughter had leukemia. His salary alone couldn't even cover a consultation with a decent doctor, let alone the treatment and the expensive medication. Strange, Seryoga himself was strong as an ox, a former Marine, his wife healthy, radiant. But somehow their child was born sick. Pavlik nudged Valera playfully. The two were close. Both former special forces fought together in the mountains. Pavlik was younger, 39, still looked like a kid, short and wiry. Hey, Lieutenant, Valera grunted. It was Valera who brought Pavlik into the project. He was also the only volunteer among us. Said he was sick of running a security department, wanted some adventure. Well, he got what he wanted. No family, no attachments. Whatever he earned here would go to his sister, and Ignat's share, apparently, to his parents. Ignat kept that same look, as if saying, yeah, I'll follow the rules. But I've got nothing in common with you people. In theory, we're not officially in yet, Valera said calmly. Once the clearance is confirmed, the operation begins. And let's hope to hell we all make it out of this hole alive. He pulled out his phone and called the operator. Boris, we're at the start point. All clear, came the reply. Good, Valera said, turning to us. Gentlemen, authorization confirmed. Your weapons and contact phones are in your vehicles. No rush. Collect everything and head to the bus circle. Victor and Pavel, you're with me in the Gazelle. Ignat and Sergei take the bus. Good luck. We exchanged handshakes. Quick, firm. A short Seryoga. Victor, Inya, Valra, Pavlik. Valera, ever the professional, occasionally reached for his water bottle and pain pills. The war had left too many holes in him to survive without meds. Pavlik, another battle-hardened officer. Me, Seryoga, and Ignat, all recruited by Boris himself. That's when monitor. Veronika Romanovna Kobrina, General Director of the Kabul Holding Company, Import-Export, Leasing, Retail, plus a daughter company, Ariel Credit Bank. But that was all just a front. Behind it operated one of the largest drug networks in the region, protected by corrupt police and her own armed enforcers. Kabrina's people eliminated rivals brutally and publicly. Officially, nothing could ever be pinned on her. She never signed anything herself, always used intermediaries. Some reports even claimed she didn't personally sanction the violence. Strange pacifism for such a dictator. Veronika Kabrina wasn't exactly beautiful, to sharp features, eyes set to deep, jet black hair. More of a raven than a Barbie. Her parents couldn't afford the Barbie life anyway. There had been 11 assassination attempts on her, and she'd survived every single one without a scratch. Her guardian angel must be top class, muttered Seryoga beside me, always serious, never smiling. Mebewan Tiogd, sentenced daughter to death. The light in him had gone out. Kabrina always traveled with 2 bodyguards, whom she dismissed at the end of the workday. Ridiculous, really. Sometimes she'd even go to restaurants alone late at night. None of it matched her image. In business, though, she was flawless, not a single trace to follow, not a single loophole. Every cent of drug, money laundered clean. So how do we even know what she's really into? Premier Rasque. From respondents inside the power structures, Valera replied, "The upper crust can't resist mingling with successful business figures like her. There are always whispers at those closed parties. Rumors also floated among hired killers. Some even wondered if this woman was just a front." Ignat spat out a pistachio shell. She's no front. That bitch runs it all herself. Well, even if that's true, I said, it would still be a mystery. But Kabrina, she thinks for herself, decides for herself, commands everything. And for some reason, she truly believes she's untouchable, Valera. Standing by the minibus was playing the part of a hungover worker. The act was spoiled only by his trademark Polaroid sunglasses. He wore them everywhere, even at training sessions, never taking them off. The dark lenses and the strand of hair falling over one eye gave him a look that was anything but proletarian, almost demonic. Pavlik sat up front by the driver, lazily smoking. 10 minutes later, at the next stop, I grabbed a cold Coke from a shop, drained it in one go, and lit a cigarette. The heat was growing stronger. The town was already awake. Cars rolled through the square, one after another, heading for the center. I thought of Alka. She could finally afford to live in a place like this. Fresh air, quiet streets. Another thought followed, darker, as long as she doesn't get tricked by some conman after me. No, that wasn't like her. Alka had instincts sharper than anyone I'd ever met. And she wasn't the type to cling to strangers. She had the best husband in the world, at least. That's what I told myself. At the kiosk, I bought a bus ticket. Ignat's face twisted with disgust as we boarded the rote van. The driver turned the ignition. The old starter waned. I handed him 30 rubles and squeezed into an empty seat at the back. Valera was already there. At the intersection, the light turned green. The Gazelle van accelerated, trying to beat the signal. We were already pushing 80 when, suddenly, everything went dark, as if a solid wall had risen just outside the left windows. A city bus, out of nowhere, had pulled up beside us, impossibly close, metal to metal, the driver of the bus, either asleep or high as a kite. There wasn't enough space between us to fit a matchbox. The collision was inevitable. At the last second, our driver jerked the wheel, swerving onto the sidewalk, luckily empty. Damn it, boss, are you drunk or what? Valrajo Ared, shakering the Shrafai driver. The rest of us were speechless. I couldn't say a word either. The bastard fell asleep. The driver muttered, "You idiot." Valera hissed, "Damn village drivers." The Gazelle drove on. I sat there, fingers clenched over my stomach. The first warning, I thought. Even without digging into the details, one thing was clear: Cabrina was a phenomenon. Too many miracles had happened around her. People like her didn't live by natural laws. Science couldn't explain it. What kind of miracles are we talking about? Ignat sneered. In 95, Valera began. Cabrina was fresh out of university, a law graduate working at an insurance company. The firm got tangled in a fake policy scheme that cost some very influential people a lot of money. The case was supposed to be simple: punish the company heads, 15 years minimum. But when the investigators came for the search, Cabrina disappeared, just vanished. The victims didn't take it well, he went on. They tracked her down and rigged her car with explosives. But the man who planted the bomb miscalculated. Only the gas tank exploded. She ended up with burns, fractures, and massive internal injuries. Barely alive, she was rushed into emergency surgery, and she survived. I asked. She did, said Valera, with odds close to zero. I later reconstructed what happened in that operating room and found something I can quite name. But whatever it was, it happened there. You're saying she talked to the devil or something? Ignat scoffed. Not exactly, Valera said quietly. It's just our minds are wired with old patterns. Since ancient times, people divided the forces of nature into good and evil, gods and demons. That's where these ideas come from. But modern science doesn't rule out the existence of certain energies, forms of consciousness that influence and transform matter. When contact occurs, we call it the devil out of superstition. Ignat frowned. So, you're saying the devil showed up in the operating room? Valera nodded slowly. I think he came in the shape of the surgeon. Someone else's face behind the mask, but no one had time to notice who's who. He worked like a master. Even in the operating room, the most seasoned surgeons wouldn't have handled it better. He spoke to the patient several times, though she was in a deep coma. I don't see anything supernatural here, drawled Pavlik, yawning. Let's say someone else took the surgeon's place. But why exactly Satan? Or whatever fundamental energy you're talking about. The surgeon really wasn't the same one, replied Krajewicz. The hospital found the staff surgeon in the storeroom behind the morgue. He'd hanged himself with his own lab coat. Died of asphyxiation before Kabrina was brought into surgery. Siryoga and Ignat were waiting for us separately near the metro. The bus arrived first. Its driver, thrilled with his own skills, cut off a gazelle van and cursed with the owner of a Land Cruiser. He insulted him thoroughly, but the man didn't even respond. According to Scrum's plan, we had to ride 3 metro stations south. Our team was still 5 people strong. After leaving the gazelle, Valera stretched, adjusted his sunglasses, and gave a short wave. Ignat and Siryoga followed. We descended the steps into the station. I got distracted looking for Valera S. back in the crowd. He was the one leading us until someone else would have to take over. Suddenly, a shout came from behind. I turned and saw 2 patrol officers struggling with a couple of young guys beyond the turnstiles. The fight looked serious. People cursed, pushed, and a few used the chaos to sneak through without paying. I hurried to catch up with Valera, but instead of turning toward the southbound trains, he stopped in the middle of the hall, a prearranged signal meaning something's wrong. When I approached, Valera was on his phone. We stood beside him, 3 of us, my stomach turned to ice with a spike in the heart. Siryoga repeated, his voice trembling. "Yeah," said Valera quietly. The spotter upstairs just called the operator. Walked past some drunk skinheads. They grabbed Ignat, stabbed him. They called an ambulance, but no need anymore. Killed him. Pavlik muttered in disbelief. Didn't even make it to the, Valera said. "I swear it." "All right," he added after a pause. "We're meeting at the 3rd car, Grey Line, Center Station." The train roared into the tunnel. But even that thunder couldn't drown out the faint, wet crackling in my ears. I hadn't heard that sound for years. My brain must have recreated it from some buried memory. The sound of a shiv tearing through flesh. Those who've faced them say the resemblance is uncanny. The twins. Krajewicz spoke evenly, like giving a university lecture. For the record, he continued, Kabrina didn't have friends or connections who could have protected her. Her former bosses used her and left her to clean up the mess. And she didn't earn enough to buy loyalty. Nowadays, she's considered a valuable lesson learned in legal circles. And the doctors? Valera asked, cleaning his Polaroid glasses with a suede cloth. They didn't notice the miracle right in front of them. Burns don't just disappear overnight, not to mention internal injuries. There was a mix-up with her documents, Krajewicz replied. The paramedics and the team saw her, sure, but they couldn't check every patient's identity, not during the crisis. Anyway, they disappeared soon after. No trace. If not for that, Kabrina's story would have stayed buried. Kabrina and the devil, Rovich snorted, lying on the operating table. But was there even any deal at all? When she was discharged, she didn't just recover, she changed. And soon, from somewhere, regular payments began to appear in her bank account. She got back into the insurance business, but this time it was pure extortion, taking money from people without shame. She maneuvered through every legal and client-side trap with uncanny ease. That's how it began. A year and a half later, she launched a wholesale trade company with her insurance firm as one of its departments. Tenkamore Privacy, a realist travel bureau. By 2000, Someone offered her to handle a large shipment of heroin. Unbelievably, she already had everything in place. The shipment sold out in a few days. That's when the first hitman came after Kabrina. Panic, weakness, the instinct to run. That's what I felt too. Crouched on the back seat of the train car. Seryoga stood by the door, fists clenched, and I knew he felt the same, only he had no way back. He couldn't afford one. Next to me, a woman shoved and shouted. Around 9:30, Alka would be at home, swallowing Valacordin for her heart or Analgin for her headaches. I looked at them, and everything inside me screamed to run out of the metro. At the very next station, throw the SIM card away, go home, forget it all. But that urge faded to the back of my mind. All those little monsters. How many of them are there in our hemisphere? I just wanted my wife to stop suffering. Alka keeps saying she isn't suffering, just a hard job, she says, but I know better. I'd stand in blood up to my shoulders and laugh with joy, if only it meant Alka would never again have to hear insults from those half-grown brats and their parents. So why did I hesitate? Her future's secure. She buy herself an apartment in a clean neighborhood, with fresh air, and maybe even travel the world like she's always dreamed. The sacrifice is tiny, nothing at all. Just me, I didn't hesitate anymore. Wherever death finds me, it won't be in vain. I grinned, looking into the eyes of a schoolboy who'd come too close. Maybe my grin looked insane. The kid flinched and hid behind someone's back. Then came the sirens. We learned about it later. Red lights flickered off the rails, machines rushing past. Valera read aloud the text from the operator. The first one's down. He lowered his head. Damn, happens, he muttered. Vala, Pavlik said, tugging at the brim of his baseball cap, like in war. Huh, yeah, war, Valera answered. Only this isn't war. It's something else. I've been under fire, he went on. Lost good men, real men. But there, we were doing our duty, and this guy, he's just dead. Feels like I led him into it myself. Why him? Seryoga asked quietly. Because, Valera said, lighting a cigarette and passing the pack around. Pavlik refused. I saw it there, Valera continued. On the wall, scrawled in blood, half-wiped, but clear enough. I thought we'd get away with it. Didn't. Maybe it was random, Pavlik offered weakly. Random? Valera snorted. In Moscow. You can run into shit anywhere. It's not about Kabrina. IDescendedIntoTheUnderworld. Step outside, and you're already risking it. You can stay home too, I said. And still die Gasthartet. Even in a damn bunker. Knock it off, Valera cut in. Enough philosophy. Pavlik gave him a long look. It wasn't random. Why Ignat? Why him? We exchanged glances. Pavlik answered first, because he was crazy enough to kill for it. That's why he was chosen, Valera nodded. Breaks over, for kilometers to go. Eyes open. Follow me. Do you think they'll cure my Anushka? Seryoga suddenly asked me. I choked. Strictly speaking, his daughter didn't concern me. She might have even gone to the same school as Alka. I was the last person he should have asked. Valera and Pavlik were leading the way. We'd fallen about 20 meters behind. To the right, a crack dump truck sat in the mud. Beyond it, a half-finished highway under repair. They should, I said finally. Money fixes everything now. You pay, You get the best tech, the best doctors. Hell, the politicians inject stem cells just to live past 100. Seryoga grunted. Tell me something, though. Pavlika's in this for his sister. I'm here for my daughter. It makes sense for us. But you, why are you in? For my wife, I said. I've got no one else. You don't have kids, do you? No. God spared me. Then why bother? Schools pay shit anyway. Or are you just sick of feeding her? I'm sick of everything, I said flatly. And you ever worked in a school? No. Then don't talk. It's hell. I was glad to end the conversation, but Seryoga muttered bitterly, my Anushka won't even go to school if she doesn't get better. Hell, you said. You'll see hell if your own kid's dying. Me and Mashka dream of walking her to first grade. Flowers, ribbons, new backpack. Hell, huh? We walked past a construction site, along endless fence cutting through the landscape. A faded banner read, "We apologize for the temporary inconvenience." Behind it, half-finished concrete skeletons. The work halted when the contractors went bankrupt. On the gate, a useless keypad. They never even built the porch they'd planned. The fence stretched on, taking a lane from the highway, only to open, now instead of 3. Drivers, impatient, swerved through the site, honking, shouting. Valera stopped. 5 minutes rest, he said. Then, after a pause, or should we take the long way around? Pavlik moved forward to the very end, then further. The floodwaters had cut off the path. Valera rejected the detour. Swampy ground here. Maybe a broken water pipe, he muttered. Feels like the soil's shifting under our feet. Let's stick to the main line, suggested Seryoga, stepping aside into a puddle of mud. You thinking with your head, soldier. Pavlik snapped. I don't care. Seryoga suddenly shouted. If we're going to die, then fine. Why bother running? Cut the panic, Valera ordered coldly. By contract, we can't take unnecessary risks. We protect ourselves, that's priority. We'll go through the construction site. No surprises there, plenty of surprises. Pavlik replied dryly and started listing the possible traps: open foundations, unstable cranes, stray dogs. He raised his hand, ticking them off finger by finger. On his ring finger was a dark scar, as if it had once been cut off. He spoke with the detached tone of a man too used to danger. His calmness was more psychological than real. Then, in a split second, it all went wrong. Seryoga's boot brushed against a protruding metal rod sticking from the ground. It was barely a touch, but something about the movement, the tension of the moment, turned it into disaster. He lost balance, tried to recover, but momentum threw him sideways. In un instant, the accident truck with brutal push, Seryoga went down. Silence followed. First of 11, muttered Kruvich quietly, correcting himself. The first of 11 men who were paid to eliminate Mrs. Karina, though that number might actually be higher. He pulled out a folder. Here's my data, only those found armed, positioned for ambush. And yet, in 9 out of 11 cases, they died right in those safe spots. One was shot in a country house where he was hiding between jobs. He'd already accepted the contract on Karina, but messed up the previous one and cheated the client. Another, a professional from counterterrorism, had decided to plant explosives under the victim's car. With fake papers, He joined a private security firm and studied the parking lot, his coureur de reconduite. And that's when it all went wrong. The accident was written off as bad luck. But how much bad luck can there be? Each case the same, every one of them connected to Karina. Who's funding you? Valera asked suddenly, breaking the tension. Kruvich didn't flinch. Doesn't matter who. What matters is the funding's solid. Tech, bases strong. Better than the Pentagon's. Pavlik coughed politely. How exactly did they die? Those who didn't blow themselves up or get taken out by rivals. Good question, Kruvich nodded. I asked myself the same thing. Most heart failure. The last one, a sniper, was found on a rooftop opposite Karina's apartment, lying face down on his rifle. He paused. Taken separately, the 11 deaths seem ordinary. Accidents, coincidences, professional mistakes. But viewed together, a pattern appears. And at the center of it, Mrs. Karina, the sniper, the killer, had broken the unspoken rules and was punished. But if you take all 11 deaths together, something like a pattern emerges. The scheme is built around Mrs. Kabrina, who occupies the key role in it, while everything else performs protective functions. Kabrina is protected, and she knows it. An attempt on her life would be pointless. That's not something to boast about. The security people themselves are delighted. They scared off all her competitors into the corners. About the 8 men who fell asleep in ambushes. They apparently do not know anything, only about the saboteur at the parking lot. But after the sniper on the roof, Kabrina moved to a new residence. She bought an apartment in that very building. We already had plenty of time to admire it. A huge block rising out of a vacant lot, and at the far edge, the highway. Kruvich enlarged the photo of the building on his tablet. There was something in common between this Veronica Kabrina and the image saved in electronic format. It retained its penetrating energy. The house seemed not to rest on a foundation. It had grown straight out of the earth. A high-rise that, in Soviet times, had been a kind of laboratory where experiments were performed on the residents. Now, it was part of the city, the Apoltsevo district, but back then it was a testing ground controlled by the shadow government. The Soviet collapse weakened that group, but they still exploited the building. Kabrina's new apartment was very well placed. The top floor windows faced a square kilometer of empty land. Then a strip of forest. The sniper had nowhere suitable from which to shoot within a 5-kilometer radius. The entrance had a security post and an airlock metal detector. Valery Alexandrovich Valera shrugged. If you really need to finish off this Veronica, deploy a fighter jet. It'll rain missiles down on the upper floors, he said. Or send in a pilot infected with HIV, he added crudely. A plane with tankers refueling beneath it, a proper bombing. Or a Manhattan-style terror model. Such measures had been proposed. But there's no guarantee the plane would peel cleanly off the runway, or that it wouldn't be packed with munitions. I'll be frank with you. I don't consider it realistic to get to Kabrina while the scheme that protects her remains functional. More than that, I'm not that interested in whether she dies. I want to observe to provoke it. Knowing how it operates, I could predict every step you take across the city. We'll be watched and filmed. I'm convinced that none of you will reach your destination. But if the protection fails and someone does get through. The program maximum is to be executed. Kill Cabrina. No, Valera whispered, removing his fingers from Sir neck. No way. He's dead, I said. There's a hole in his skull. Valera snapped his vertebrae with a little movement. The holes in the skull were no longer even visible. After the fall, the dead man's arm had folded at the elbow, his palm pressing on the wound. A brown trickle seeped out from beneath the hand. Can we do anything for him? Pavlik's rationalism had drained away like sewage. On the team leader's face there was the instant recalculation of priorities. The world of those who think themselves chosen was simply doomed. Sooner or later they reap fatal trouble. But 2 minutes earlier, Sir had died before our eyes, not logically, but absurdly. People don't die like that. The guard had found in the pattern a foreign element, pulled it out, hurled it to the ground, and stamped on it with his heel until it crunches. What can you do for him? He's dead. Valera brushed the dust from his knees. Besides, he was alone. We can't linger. Maybe take his pistol? I asked. Don't bother. Others handle that. Move. If you don't, you'll freeze, Pavlik said. I still can't believe that happened. He tugged my sleeve for some reason. We were climbing the embankment into a block wrapped in thick rows of 5-story buildings. Our trip had already lasted 12 hours, and we were 6 minutes behind schedule for the stop where we were supposed to catch the trolley bus. Quite a traffic jam had formed. The cabbie had collected a couple of foreign cars and a Duma-style BMW, 3 more exhausting. Hours on surface transport, from north to south, several transfers, and the interminable waiting for the start, when your legs might fly up over your head and your consciousness dim in an instant, left you fatigued and wound up at once. We rode to more metro stations and then entered this godforsaken neighborhood, a Soviet-era loop off the highway. Nobody got off with us from the bus. The sun was sinking under a wrinkled horizon, still trying to scorch, but the quarter itself felt cold. The drab, grey facades cut out the sunlight everywhere. Shadow, shadow, you wouldn't believe it. And that's right, for now. You keep your head and don't want to believe in any damned mysticism. Valera was ahead, hands in his pockets. On the bus et 500 taken, a few pills. No devilry, Pavlik startled me. It's not at all what we think, and there's no damned protective scheme either. Listen, didn't you see how Sir cracked his skull? Do you think that's a normal occurrence? I'll agree that Ignat died in a fairly standard way, but I saw how Sir smashed himself, and how Ignat was stabbed. No idea, only that someone put some Shura down, and then Valera called in to report it. See, exactly nothing gets through to you. Make it plainer. Krivich works for some secret organization like the one he mentioned, maybe even for them directly. He runs an extremely important, costly project with an astronomical budget. But wait, why wouldn't he, Valera, know that they've put licensed toughs under his command? No, they're not the ones who've hammered this into our heads. There is no Cabrina, no killers. We being tested for behavior under conditions of aggressive paranormal activity generated by an algorithm of factors, human factor, industrial, cyber. It's all simulation. You're saying that instead of Ignat, some mannequin died. I said, stop, the mannequin idea won't do. We were given assignments, not one for all of us, but specific tasks. Ignat, easiest of all. He went straight home from the metro. We didn't stand a candle for him when they handed him the $250,000 in cash, right? But Seryoga could have been paid more. All the way here, we didn't doubt that we'd been slotted into some mythical scheme. Ignat got stabbed, and here Seryoga on flat ground cracks his skull. The point is they paid for the suicide. You're joking, I said. Do you think it's possible to finish yourself off like that? He was into gymnastics. What he did was a stunt, a fall with a flip. He loved his daughter. He wouldn't do that for her. Pasha, who had been silent, snapped that the protective scheme and the resurrected Veronica Cabrina, who had been brought out of a hopeless coma and operated on by an imposter surgeon, were the issue. Valera turned right toward the highway. There wasn't a car in sight. We'll walk along the shoulder, he said. Why the hell does anyone need to study our reactions to anomalies? I asked Pavlik. And why drag us into this thriller with such questions? I'm ready to believe the experiment has deep practical value, Pavlik said. But I will never believe in a deal with the devil. As soon as we moved along the loop, a cough seized me. The air was thick with layers of dry dust. Pavlik fell silent. He'd stopped pushing his theory. Valera walked 50 meters ahead, took a pack from his pocket, shook a few tablets into his mouth, and tipped his head back, swallowing. Far off, toward the highway, a muffled growl intruded, a motorcycle behind us. The rider in a studded leather jacket that looked like body armor, with a dark visor on his helmet, hunched over the handlebars and twisted the throttle. The throttle, an invisible debugger of the scheme, matching the blueprint, selected another unnecessary part and, armed with pliers, spread its jaws to pull out the surplus. The motorcycle sped off toward the turn, and dust rose, disturbed. I had just taken a deep breath, and the filth clogged my bronchi. Valera dropped the little vial from his left hand, and it bounced to the double white line. Valera's right hand shot to his face. As far as I could tell, he was frantic. He was already sitting down, without his Polaroids, next to the dead Seryoga, and then Valera went off. He must have been blinded by the dust. It was acrid. It stung and cut the cornea. In slow motion I saw Valera, rubbing only one eye, but it looked like both were blinded. He clearly couldn't see a damn thing, and completely lost orientation. Staggering, he stumbled out into the middle of the road and stepped on the spinning vial. Half an hour later, Pavlik revealed the riddle of this absurdity about Valera. He had only one eye, the right one, and the left had been knocked out with the butt of an automatic rifle when his reconnaissance battalion, surrounded by fighters, was executed. In any case, a small stone or a shard of glass kicked up from under a motorcycle wheel could have cost him the other eye. Blind and dazed, Valera stopped in the lane of oncoming traffic, directly in front of the radiator of a heavy truck. The driver's body burst at the seams. A rain of blood and mangled flesh flew past us. The radiator grill bit into the rear tire, and the tire smoked. Goddamn, fat streaks on the asphalt. The truck skidded. It didn't flip over, but came to rest crosswise, the cab on the shoulder, the trailer diagonally blocking the road. Pavlik and I ran across the highway and soon got lost among the high-rises of the residential district. It was 10 in the evening. I was left alone. We had crossed the sleeping neighborhood in about 40 minutes. We needed at least the quarter hour's rest we were ahead of schedule for. We sat on a bench in the small park, that ran along the road. On its far edge a tower dimmed into the twilight, half an hour to it. "And what now? What do you think?" Pavlik asked. "You served with him. Could Valera have committed suicide for the sake of science?" Pavlik muttered something under his breath and, looking like he was cursing himself, his lips turned blue. Suddenly he mumbled incoherently, "I'm suffocating. Maybe I'll die now. I'm not a suicide. Why are you suffocating?" Premier Asqued. 16. General anesthesias after that fight. When Valurka lost the eye in the hospital, they beat his insides to a pulp, his heart smashed. Since then, he hasn't run anywhere. He's a wreck. "I saw your medical record." He groaned. I saw it. He was thrown out of the Ministry of Defense Clinic. Pavlik rattled off in a daze. Of course he saw my chart and everything in it. "But what sense is there in sending you on this safari? You already don't complain. If you push a workload above average, watch out for Kruvich." Pavlik flinched, his hand pressed to his chest. "He is the devil. If this happened, he told us. You must immediately move as far away as possible. You can be caught near a corpse. As a result, your further movement will be complicated. You should move from checkpoint to checkpoint, but not run headlong." I went down onto the highway shoulder and lit a cigarette, trying to calm my overexcited imagination. Pavlik rose silently from the bench, came down the sloping lawn toward me, and laid a cold, damp hand on my shoulder, but Pavlik had been sitting on that bench. Nobody paid any attention to him. Nearby locals were walking dogs. A young woman with a stroller passed the bench. Pavlik leaned back on the seat and closed his eyes as if to nap. But it wasn't sleep. His jaw had dropped. Saliva drooled from his lower lip onto his shirt. He was dead. His version that Kruvich's plans were far more grandiose than declared stayed with him. I tried to imagine the people who would come to examine and take his body for autopsy. They were in no hurry to appear, waiting for me to leave, and I was in no hurry either. Above, the blazing whine of helicopter turbines, I thought it must be the aerial filming crew. It was already known, of course, that the number of contestants had shrunk to 1. They had all died. I LL die too, I honestly told myself, but Alka will get the money for her husband's blood. My life will cover it. I told myself I wasn't going to give up my life just so that Mr. Kruvich could dig into the primary causes. And no one will dare say I already knew everything. I'll get to the tower. I'll get there no matter the cost. Even at $250,000 as part of the contract, you won't come to me. The cab slowed to a stop at the last gasp when I voted on the route. The driver lowered the window and asked where to go. "Brother, Jihad." The driver was slovenly, like a mangy horse. "To the next stop," I said, handing over a 100-ruble note. The car crawled forward like a dying turtle. By the gauge, it seemed I was lucky to catch a cabbie who didn't he like speed, and with such a funeral face at that. "Listen, brother, are you local?" he asked out of the blue. "From this neighborhood. Take me to the metro," I said. "No need. The stop's closer to the metro. If there's no money, I'll go for 100. "Don't be here then." "If you're not local, I'm not going back. If they pay big money, I go." "I'm on a business trip." I smiled and stared out the window. He clicked his tongue. There was an accident on the road behind us. A trucker had smashed something, and cars with flashing lights had come. The radiator meat was scattered. The driver was in handcuffs, shoved into a van and driven off. "Why handcuffs?" I asked. "Maybe he resisted," he muttered. When I reached the house on the vacant lot, the sky was lit by sparse stars. The lot sank into utter darkness. I crossed half a kilometer from the loop on the highway without incident and felt perfectly normal, no impending heart attack or anything sudden. I calmed myself and pressed the intercom button. Listening, a voice came through the speaker. "Which apartment?" "Totopilin Vladimir Georgievich Kamenlo Klivn." "One moment, I'll call him. He'll come down." A sec later, "Vladimir Georgievich T. Victor, downstairs. Sorry." The line keeps cutting out. The reply came. The signal was weak. A voice I didn't know answered. Coordinate, not Kruvich. Another Kruvich, maybe at the helipad. I frowned, puzzled. A minute later, a message flashed on my Nokia display. "Where did you dig up this insider?" Valera asked about Veronica. He spoke with disdain at the word insider. To him, the term was contemptible. For someone who tries to measure everything, such a word is like a spit in the soul. Veronica Kobrina Incarnateville, who should ideally be wiped off the face of the earth without a trace. That was how he talked about her. He's even afraid to look a hair on her head. At the holding company, she held the post of senior legal counsel. For Kobrina, he was both lawyer and advisor, around the clock and without days off. That's why she bought an apartment in the high-rise for herself and promised him one next door. The guy swore that if anyone managed to reach the high-rise, he would hit the panic button and alert the on-duty guard. The one who reached in would signal the operator. The operator would send the order to insider. The insider would be ready and raise the alarm. "How tangled your setup is," Kruvich scoffed. Pavlik called it conspiracy, an insider already compromised and known by name. Kobrina's security doesn't care. Besides, if Kobrina dies, her empire will collapse like a house of cards. But he intends to be as indirectly involved in the assassination as possible. He said he also knew something about the scheme and wanted to keep his position. Stay as far away from her as possible. You've got about 15 seconds to get into the elevator. After that, consider the operation blown. Of course, triggering the alarm in the presence of outsiders already implies an attack. But with the element of surprise, he'll act strictly by the book. We're only talking hypothetically here, because if your predictions are no better than those from the Rosguitar Analytical Center, on DeFalof US make it, that's more than one won't survive. There's a 99% chance we won't even need to bother the insider. You'll all be taken out along the way. Abandon your illusions, gentlemen. I'm giving you instructions for communication with the operator only for the most extreme, unlikely case. Sorry, I mean a case that won't happen at all. The security guard frowned. His eyes flashed like twin bolts of lightning under his furrowed brows. Agreed, it's not exactly close. But this meeting, it's more important to Topolin than to me, I said. Of course, I could have written down the wrong numbers myself, but could you invite him here? You've got a landline, right? We don't make calls. The guard snapped. I wasn't thinking of anything. I simply couldn't. What do you mean you can't? I protested sincerely. I'm just an ordinary visitor. I must have looked furious. It wasn't enough that I got the wrong number. Now this bald guard was complicating everything even more. Please go outside and try to contact Vladimir Georgievich from there, ordered the bald one. Is this even a residential building? I insisted. Maybe you'll give me a warning shot first. I came here on business. Aren't you supposed to sit in your booth? The guard straightened his shoulders. You understand Russian, right? He said, stepping closer. Samwe, a sirène blaredina karin. Phantom lights began to dance across the walls. The alarm had gone off. Clear, reported an inner voice in my earpiece, and I deftly vaulted over the low barrier past the metal detector camera. Either the closing phase of our relay wasn't planned at all and turned into one giant failure, or the entire thing was a staged setup. That I'd have to figure out later. The kicker was, in the guard booth lurked a double. He didn't waste time with pleasantries like, "Stop, sir, come back." No. Emoved fast his elbowcot the chimney-tiled floor. When premier camto, premier et arvois ringers male, they were male or female. Hope you didn't kill him, said one. What's the problem? We'll bury him by the lot. He'll get used to it. We've got plastic bags for that. That kind of hospitality was new to me. Nah, looks alive, another voice, likely female, said, breathing close. So, what? Finish him off here while no one's around, or hand him to the cops. I'll finish you, idiot. The first aid kit's in the storage room. Bring cotton and ammonia. Veronica, he's got a gun. I opened my sticky eyes. Above me towered an expert in close-quarters combat. He had pulled my gun from my waistband and was inspecting it. Unloaded, he muttered in surprise. Not a single round. The slides jammed. Something clattered. The sound echoed painfully near my ear. Then, the sharp sting of ammonia hit my nose. "How are you?" the woman asked. The tone made it clear that only a negative answer would be accepted. "By your prayers," I croaked, starting to rise. "Help him," the woman ordered, and it came just in time. Otherwise, the guard might have knocked me out again for good. I hate kids and athletes. I grumbled as they hauled me up under my arms, and then I saw her, Veronica Cabrina herself. Her face was paradoxically unpretty, impossible to describe in words, but once you'd seen it, you could never forget it. "You came to see Vladimir Georgievich?" Cabrina asked. I swallowed, fighting the nausea. I could imagine what happened here to people who vomited on the floor. Probably made them clean it up with their own hands. "He's not here," she said. "I'll hold the meeting instead. You don't mind, do you?" "No," I muttered. "Then come with me. Don't get bored, guys." Veronica Cabrina's apartment made a grim impression. It had everything, from luxury Euro renovations to expensive furniture, yet except for the sofa and one armchair. All the upholstery was still wrapped in plastic. A short suit jacket lay carelessly thrown on the couch. On the table, an open laptop and an ashtray full of thin cigarette butts. "So, you're the killer." Cabrina moved her purse and laptop to the corner of the couch and gestured for me to sit down. She threw her jacket over her shoulders. The air seemed to freeze. "Tell me, how did you get to me? Many have tried. Professionals, too. Though professionalism doesn't really matter, and yet, here you are." "How?" "They paid me," I said, "to find you. And kill you. But you re-protected by a system, one that wouldn't have let a killer through. So I decided not to go through with it. I emptied the magazine into a trash bin. I could have just handed you a gun, Cabrina said indifferently. She climbed into her chair, tucked her legs under herself, and wrapped up in the jacket. But you wouldn't have shot me anyway. The bullet jammed. She laughed softly, almost like a child. You tricked your employers. What a terrible sin. Nothing terrible about it. I shrugged. They're no angels themselves. There must be more to you, she said quietly. Your thoughts aren't pure, but breaking a vow isn't enough to send you to hell. And yet, here you sit across from me. To complete a mission, I asked. You mean a killing? I won't do it. I plan to walk out of here alive and almost unharmed. I can tell you the name of the one who sent me, I continued. But honestly, he doesn't wish you dead. He just wanted me to do something for him. You can't kill, but the mission still lies on you, even if you're a traitor and oath-breaker. Maybe that's why it's yours. What mission? To guide me, she said simply. I can't leave this world otherwise. You must kill. Then they'll go to even or hell, east say. Send you straight to the underworld. Figure of speech. I nodded. That's what pirates used to threaten each other with, but I mean it literally, she cried out, curling up. Someone has to go with me. Someone who will be let in there. Tears streamed down her pockmarked cheeks. I burned in the car. She sobbed, her voice breaking. I burned alive, and people just stood around. I screamed, called for help. No one came. I started praying, Dear God, you love me, right? You love everyone. Forgive me. It hurts so much. I'm burning. Maybe it was shock, but then someone whispered right into my ear, I am not talking to you. And I stopped praying. People just stood there, taking pictures of my melting face with their phones. I tried to think how many more were there. The smoke was choking me, but inside I said, if God has turned away from me, fine, take my soul then. You wanted it, didn't you? And then I heard, I pulled you out. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on an operating table. So, what do we do next? I asked. There's another option, the voice said. Say no, and I'll cut your artery. Are you a surgeon? I asked. I'm operating on you, he said. Already scraped off a ton of burned flesh. You're barely human, good for nothing but display. I could fix you up, make you like new. But that's expensive. Honestly, you don't need it. I could send you to the next world right here, no pain. I agree to anything, I said. Just don't let me die. Let me stay the way I was before the car. I'll earn money for you, I promised. Not for me, he said coldly. For them, you're garbage, same as me. I respect that. You'll just owe a little. Fine, live then. You'll curse this deal soon enough. But I never force anyone. Tear it up if you want, then come to me yourself. I'll show you the road. And after that, like in a fairy tale, I found myself back. Not that I hadn't made an effort, but everything started turning in my favor, only it didn't make me happy. I couldn't figure out why for a long time. Money, whatever. Stuff, doesn't matter. Power, I'd wanted that since childhood. And now I had it, everything I'd ever dreamed of, and yet not a drop of joy. Première blâme extraterrestre first. What came back from that fire was just the shell of me. My dreams, they burned in that car. Besides, there's no such thing as clean success. You have to walk over corpses to get it. Of course, I never felt pity for anyone. Not then, not even tonight, Kabrina said quietly. But sometimes. Sometimes I got so tired of it all, I was ready to end everything at once. I often sat alone at home, staring at that damned contract, wondering what he really meant when he said, "Come to me yourself." I thought it was just a metaphor for suicide. One day, I broke. I filled the bathtub with warm water, slit both my wrists, and waited to fall asleep. Sleep. It's beautiful. I almost stopped sleeping after the hospital, but sleep didn't come. When I opened my eyes, the bathtub was full of blood to the brim, spilling over the sides. The next day, he called. I didn't recognize him at first. Thought it was someone else. He asked how business was going, and then it hit me. Dat voice. And he spoke through something muffled, maybe a surgical mask. He said, "What I gave you, I can take back, but without anesthesia. There are only 3 passages from the living to the dead. 2 on Earth, one in southern Africa, the other in Antarctica, and both still need to be found. The 3rd one, humans drilled it themselves. Right here in this house. It starts in the basement, but you won't make it all the way down. My condolences." And then he added, "I'm not just anyone. I'm stronger than your fear, worse than you. Move into that house and wait. People like you usually get visited by killers. But for you, a guide will come. They don't sell apartments there, but I'll connect you with the right people. Well, Cabrini, since you veuve m'aditer, you're the one meant to guide me." She lowered her feet onto the carpet, reached for her shoes, and slowly slipped them on. "Right now?" I asked. "Yes, right now. I'd offer you a cup of coffee for the road, but the sooner we leave, the sooner you'll be back." And I'd rather not relax. Her eyes wandered around the room, touching objects like she was saying goodbye to them, hoping they'd give her just one last bit of warmth. But it was too late. For this plain, weary woman, the algorithm that once protected her no longer mattered. She picked up her purse, held it for a moment, then set it back down. "Perfume? I won't need that. Wet wipes? They'll provide some there. There must be some kind of service, right?" She closed her laptop. It was still open to a dating site. "I'm not ready," I whispered. "Neither am I," she said. "But we're going anyway. Come." Her words fell into silence. The apartment already felt hollow. By the time we left, it was as if Veronica Cabrina no longer lived there. The elevator connected to a technical level below the first floor. She entered a code on the panel. The cabin dropped sharply, making my ears pop. The passage branched into 2 dim sections. The air vibrated with a low electrical hum. "The substation," Veronica explained. "Remember the way back. You'll have to return alone." A metal staircase led downward, swaying slightly in the draft that seemed to breathe from the depths of the basement. I took her by the elbow. She could barely walk. It felt like helping a condemned soul climb the steps to her own scaffold, her knees weak at the sight of the instruments of torture laid beside the block. The basement was truly terrifying. The floor trembled underfoot, as if a massive heart was beating somewhere beneath us. A dead, autonomous heart kept alive by some artificial stimulator. "So," I said, ignoring politeness, "is this all part of your underground network?" She didn't even look at me. "I am walking toward my death. Do you really think anyone cares how long I plan to last? I've never gone past the basement, she added quietly. See those pillars? Behind them, a door in the wall, marked vertical axis, radiation hazard. Radiation. From where? Première escade. From there, she said. That's where it begins. This is for the curious ones, so they don't go poking around there, the strategic tier. The cage descends into it. Don't pry at the door. I don't really see very well as from an explosion, with rivets of the hull brackets to the bottom of the shaft. The cage, we were burning through the last crumbs of resources for its safe operation. I tried not to think about the chief engineer's men who worked with this thing, desperate guys, not my kind. Many of them were shot, executed. If I'd been one of them, I wouldn't have climbed down here on the engineer's orders. I'd have crushed down on the spring-loaded. Those were desperate fellows. The chief engineer's men laid the foundation of the high-rise over the cavity in the ground. Let's go, Veronica repeated. Go there. Do you see the lining? Don't let me turn back. Drag me, bite me on the head. Just don't let me return from the abyss. A crack rose like a fracture. The air was stale and rusty. By 4 in the morning I had made the ascent back up to the 16th floor to Veronica Cabrina's unlocked apartment. My survival instinct was decisively against showing myself again to the guards. In the stairwell, but 10 minutes of acrobatics along the wine-blown fire, escape almost felt like enjoyment. I would have preferred not to recall all the hellish details. I could not face that route a second time, neither up nor down. I was saved by a tiny module in the brain that alcoholics proudly switch off on autopilot, and that they oddly treat as a metaphor only. In one place did I get lost. The autopilot hung, and I was carried into a gloomy double-track hall of some engine room wagon which, unlikely as it was to ever move, made me dumb with fear at the sight of it. My autopilot threw an error. Danger. I ran away along the embankment, and wagon headlights were blazing hot behind me. To this day, I haven't mustered the courage to go back. Surely you've had the experience. You press the key to delete an unwanted file from a hard drive, and the operating system replies. Documents in use be another application and cannot be deleted première of the sum. Trouble with the file in which memory recorded the scene that opened before Ms. Cabrina's door as an epilogue. And no, I haven't told everything to myself. No, not everything. At night, Alka didn't joke. She was worn out. Vala warmed food for me, but I didn't have breakfast, lunch, or dinner for a week. The final stretch of the way was an ordinary corridor. Usually it ended where the city infrastructure, cast high above our heads, began. In complete stupor, she didn't notice when the armored door, with a round porthole, swung open toward her. Standing in the doorway, there was nothing like the classic devil as medieval painters depicted. No goat beard, no hooked nose, no evil little eyes, no hooves. I won't lie about the hooves. But instead, blue polyethylene overshoes more like tree stumps. The image adapted itself to our conditioned perception. The figure did not brutally jolt subconscious associations with pain and bleeding. She wore a blue shirt with a round neckline, drawstring pants, a surgical cap, one-piece lens glasses, and a surgical mask. Veronica Romanovna, the man said. He unfolded something like a contract folded in quarters. Yes, Veronica answered. Pieces of contracts fell to the floor. The surgeon rubbed his hands. This is death. Veronica stepped back from the doorframe. The surgeon's smile crinkled the mask. No, you are not dead yet, Veronica Romanovna. The other dimension accepts the dead by their death. But you are special. I'll have to fuss a bit with you. That was all Veronica said. You need to undress. She took off her jacket and unbuttoned the top button of her blouse, but the surgeon stopped her. No, no, not in the corridor. Please come here. I'm not talking about your clothes, he added, and his finger touched Veronica's belly. She doubled over. Projection from world to world was being carried out outside of physical objects. God, his hands were free a moment ago, and suddenly a scalpel was in one hand and an amputation saw in the other. Lay her on the table over there by the drainage gutters. I'll remove he turned his attention to me. And you, it's time for you to go home. Don't get lost and don't eavesdrop at the door. Friends, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Your support helps our stories reach more amazing people just like you, and you'll never miss a single new tale. Go ahead, join our growing story-loving family today.